We are back. As we continue season 3, make sure to check out our previous episodes on the US 2020 presidential election before the results, and the episode on Indigenous Peoples Day, Columbus Day, and Dia de la Raza. Now stay tuned as we discuss the holiday Cinco de Mayo. Where is the line between celebration and cultural appropriation? What influence does France have on the country and hemisphere currently? And how do we move beyond the holiday to continuously act upon anti-imperialism? All here on Conversamos.
Yeah, yo, is it that wrong? I'm making a song, I'm taking it back for the platform that I formed. Music's helping me transform.
Before we begin the conversation, we would like to give a business spotlight to Chola Vida, a Chicana-owned business that sells and promotes cultural accessories, clothing, and artistry. Check them out at Official Chola Vida and redbubble.com via Madeline Arvizo. Now, with our first question, what is the significance behind Cinco de Mayo, and how is it currently being celebrated?
Originally, Cinco de Mayo was celebrated in Puebla because it's to commemorate the Battle of Puebla against for the victory against the French back in the 1800s. So that's really primarily where it was celebrated. It was a national holiday in Mexico at one point in time that was celebrated across Mexico, and then that kind of went away, and now it's just primarily celebrated in Puebla, but people still get off from school and from work to celebrate Cinco de Mayo.
Why for me, I would say, well, it was introduced to me from some Mexican family, well, friends of family, but family, back when we were growing up in North Carolina at this time. So I kind of understood it as a celebration. Didn't know too much depth, to be honest. And then it was reintroduced to me when I went to college, where it introduced as margarita time. And this is what people do. And it was probably one of the more interesting points was that the demographics of those that would celebrate hard versus come give you a hug, give you a cheers. It was very interesting, the differences in how people went about their celebrations. But that's why.
For me, yeah, it's definitely, I agree with everyone else, a relay. It's definitely started from a historical level. But I guess from here in Santa Barbara has, how do you say, Chicano way of celebrating Cinco de Mayo. One of our local car clubs called Nightlife have their anniversary on Cinco de Mayo. So celebrated out here in Santa Barbara, California. And at first it was like a patriotic holiday. I learned that the Concilio de Mexico out here in Santa Barbara back in the 1950s and 60s, they would celebrate Cinco de Mayo out here in Santa Barbara. And it just came another reason to celebrate and eat Mexican food and drink Mexican beer and tequila. So it went from like a significant holiday locally to the Chicano community, the Mexican American community. Then I just noticed how it got commercialized. It definitely is another equivalency of St. Patrick's Day. With that said, I'm looking forward to this Cinco de Mayo because with Black Lives Matter and all these corporations, trying to be more politically correct, I wonder how they're going to be going with Cinco de Mayo. I wonder if there's going to be another PR blunder or something like that. But yeah, that's just my thoughts on the history. It's definitely been celebrated in Santa Barbara for more than definitely almost 80 years. So it's a big holiday out here too.
Thank you, Michael. And that kind of transitions to our next question. Should Cinco de Mayo still be celebrated? And if so, how should it be celebrated?
For me, it's like, even with my own job, I even I'm doing a presentation on Cinco de Mayo. And I guess for me personally, it's like, all right, if you want to wear a sombrero, like, go for it. But if you're going to be wearing like a fake mustache, a poncho, like dress up as a Mexican type of thing, that's where it falls in the line of cultural appropriation, and that's where it becomes extremely problematic. But if you want to have it, if you're not of Mexican heritage, but you want to celebrate this holiday, yeah, it's nothing wrong. Eat some Mexican food, like drink some Mexican beer. It's an excuse to do so, enjoy our culture. But in this case, this is more of a St. Patrick's culture. It's by Mexican Americans, Chicanos, Latinos, formulated in Miami, Florida. So by marketing companies and so on. So, but yeah, that's my thoughts.
I would like to echo that. But I'm not going to say I have too much right to dictate how folks celebrate. I do think there is a hard line once you start leveraging Mexican stereotypes, once you start adding on an accent, once you start all of a sudden, yeah, the mustache kind of got me. I think Michael hit on the head. It's really the mustache. And then once people add in an accent for no reason whatsoever, when they could just be enjoying themselves, being themselves, and celebrating just like anyone else would. It's one thing to be learning how to dance. It's another thing to be making fun of a dance, So I feel like that's where my opinion really is in terms of Cinco de Mayo. It turns into a great networking event on the professional side, because then you have like a reason to meet so-and-so. There becomes methodologies behind your happy hours, so to speak. But to the extent that you have the right to don the garb of something that ain't you, just for the sake of, is kind of a different perspective all in all.
Thank you, Benjamin. And then Angel, then Maria.
So I feel like the holiday should still be celebrated, but I think the way that we should go about it, I mean, of course, like any changes that are to come about, it's gonna take a long time for people to unlearn what's already been marketed for the last, since circa the 50s. So it's gonna be hard. But I think what people need to realize too is have the background knowledge of it as well, as like what's the significance of it. It's just not, it's another reason to go out drinking, but it's just like, know the significance behind it, of what you're celebrating and who the people the people that you're celebrating. I think it's all about knowledge, having the knowledge and being able to be like, okay, what ways can I go about being able to celebrate it and be respectful of it? By all means, go out and support Mexican businesses, all that good stuff, because our communities definitely need it.
Yeah, well, actually, the 5th of May here in Mexico is not like really like big stuff, because I think that Mexican people celebrate more the Independence Day. And I think that most of the people that live in the USA think that the 5th of May is really important here in Mexico. And it should be, because it's where all this war between France and Mexico ended. But actually here is not like a big deal or big importance. And in the USA, I think that it is, because people like, Angel said that all people go drinking and go do all that Mexican stuff, like put on all these like dress like Mexicans, but actually I don't think that they really know why is this celebrating, It's like really hard to understand, but I think that they only use this date like an excuse to get drunk and get like big stuff with all these parties and all that kind. But actually it's not a big deal. I think that maybe in the USA you should like, I don't know, like he said, like do support Mexican little business and all that kind of stuff, but like really knowing why, because that battle that we have here in Mexico was where the Spanish people and the French people, like I don't know how to say, like had the rights of Mexico because the French people only come here to conquer Mexico. That's why. So maybe you should know, because if that war doesn't happen and France is still in here, Mexicans, we I don't know, we will still talking in French, not in Spanish. So, it's like really, really different how the Americans see this war, like from Mexicans see this war. I don't know.
So actually, I thought of an additional question here, and maybe Michael, you could also add to this, is that, so this has also, from my understanding, this holiday has been outcoming since for the big Chicano movement, right? Why do if from what you know or anyone knows, why did the Chicanos during that time period choose Cinco de Mayo as the day, the holiday, the battle? I mean, there's been many battles have won. Why this particular?
Cinco de Mayo, you have to see Cinco de Mayo as like the symbolism and the association. So for me, the Battle of Cinco de Mayo and also how I've observed from my Chicano elders, this is Cinco de Mayo represents fighting against colonialism. It's fighting against colonialism where, yes, Mexico is our national heritage. We're going to be rooting for them. They're the underdog. We're the underdog. It's a David versus a Goliath story. Of course, for the folks who actually know this history, it was just one small battle. Well, it was a very critical battle that ultimately won the war, but there was many other battles. But anyways, so going back to the symbolism, it's the underdog versus Goliath. And like I said, Cinco de Mayo, ever since after the Mexican-American War, Cinco de Mayo has been something celebrated. I know in my research, Cinco de Mayo has been celebrated since as early as like the 1900s, the 1890s. In another connection with in that time, the Cinco de Mayo, this was the 1860s. And this is where like Chicanos who are more pro-American theorize, and this is like, you could also argue about this, but it's pretty logical, is that essentially if Mexico didn't defeat France would have supported the France was supporting the South, and that could have turned the tide. So essentially we had this mutual enemy, and it's one of those things like, the world was going in chaos, and there was wars between our neighbors, and we were on the same side essentially. So some Chicanos try to make that connection. Yeah.
Would you not think there's irony in the David versus Goliath battle, and Goliath came to ultimately profit?
Yeah, I mentioned to the sister who was just speaking earlier, when I went to Mexico like 2 years ago, my scholar friend Alfonso from Chicanos Sin Fronteras, he was telling me how France is still involved in Mexico City when it comes to the educational infrastructure. And that's one thing France still has when it comes to neocolonialism. Their hands are all over Latin America, Africa, and they're controlling the institutions. So
yeah, I just wanted to add to what he was saying with the David and Goliath. I think the biggest symbolism from it comes is that you had this small Mexican army of 4,000 people going up against the French army of 8,000 people. And at that point in time, like, the French army hadn't been defeated for, I think it was, if I remember correctly, what I was reading, it was like 50 years, if I remember correctly. So it was a huge deal. So so that's, for me, I feel like that was one of the biggest reasons that they chose to use Cinco de Mayo as that piece of symbolism. And as a way to pay homage to them.
I like how you brought that point up, Angel, because 50 years from that battle was the Haitian Revolution, where the Haitians revolted against France at the time and then created their own republic, right? And so this brings up this whole concept of Latinidad, and something that also that Michael and Maria brought forth, where that there is still a French influence in Mexico. And also, if you look conceptually within Latinidad, just the identity itself, because we look at the phrase Latino, Latine, it's derives from the Latin languages of the America, which are Portuguese, French, and Spanish, right? And so with this kind of understanding that although French left, the language still stuck within the Americas. And so with that, my question here is for anyone is that with this conception and foundation of it, can this be a Latine holiday, not just a Mexican or Chicano holiday?
Well, I would say to a degree it already is. It's just a matter of the education behind it, as Mr. Angel was kind of mentioning before. Not that it's solely white folk that's going out to drink. It's many people. It's a lot of people within the Western sphere. It's not just solely one body, even though they're carrying the majority of the drinks, I would imagine. I would definitely imagine. But in reality, I think it's the beginnings of. I've seen in the past couple of years now, more than ever, the exchanging of holidays from different countries. There's a month or a week or a special time designated for a lot of different kinds of folk. And a lot of people have taken that to heart and started expressing true, worthwhile celebrations that exchange cultural influence and allow people to be themselves. So I feel, in a long-winded way, it's the beginning of of Latinidad.
Well, actually, as Benjamin said, I think that, I don't know, well, it's kind of crazy because, like, as I said before, this is not like a really special date here in Mexico, but I think that for the Mexicans that live in other countries is important because it's a time where they spend this time with their own culture. And it's good, that to have this cultural connection with other people from other countries, but actually knowing why they are getting this big deal and why is this culture moving like this, and why is the music, and why they are drinking tequila and mezcal, and they are not drinking only beers and American beers, and why they are the candies or this all kind of food, is knowing why, not only doing it just because all people is doing it, I'm going to doing it because they are doing it, so I'm going to copy them. No, it's not like that. You have to know why you are doing actually that stuff. And maybe if you come to Mexico, like Michael, come to Mexico, you are going to notice that is a really, really big difference between the Mexican culture and the American culture and Canadian culture and all that stuff. Because actually, when I go to Canada, they like give me some like Mexican tacos, and I was like, oh my God, what is this? Like, you go to Taco Bell and you think that those are the Mexican tacos, but you come to Mexico and taste the really, really, really good Mexican tacos, you're like, oh my God. So I think that this is a day that, yeah, it should be celebrating, like to connect with Latino culture. But I think that also the Mexicans that live in there have like the responsibility to inform, like to give the correct information to the people that are celebrating with them and making real Mexican food. Because if not, and it happens a lot, like the Americans coming here and said like, oh yeah, hamburgers, burritos, and tacos and all that stuff, but they are not the same. So like making this connectivity with the correct information of the other culture. So actually we get used to know them, not only making parties and all that stuff. That's what I think about it.
Yeah, no, it's, and just to connect with this whole idea of Cinco de Mayo and how Americans, or in this case, Canadians, how do they perceive Mexican cultures? Definitely folks who have migrated to the Estados Unidos, like Cinco de Mayo is a holiday that reminds them of the homeland. My family's from the west coast of Mexico, and we don't celebrate Cinco de Mayo really, but my girlfriend's from Puebla, and they celebrate it. But going back to this like perception, how it's fabricated, who is profiting from Cinco de Mayo, which corporations, what are their visual material, what is their message, what are they basing this on, what are their sources, and I said, when I mentioned earlier about like Miami, Florida, Miami, Florida is the Hispanic media capital of the Hispanic market and Latin America, in my opinion. And in my experience, it's like a lot of these people who are producing, who work for corporations, they're not even of Mexican heritage. So there's so many people stirring the pot, and how it's processed based on on racism and so on. But like, I guess just to finish it off, it is a Latino, Latinx holiday. And yeah, I wish people would take the opportunity to learn that not everyone's Mexican.
So what I wanted to add, piggyback off of what Michael just said, is just like the narrative, and what Benjamin said earlier too, is just like we technically do celebrate each other's holidays, and it's more of a Latin holiday now than what probably it was before, simply because you do have these Latin news outlets that will say like, oh, this is Cinco de Mayo, and do all these different celebrations during, like, for instance, Despierta America. They would do like the whole sombrero poncho thing for Cinco de Mayo, but they also highlight other cultures within Latin America, their celebrations as well. So I do feel like it is a shared celebration. Granted, maybe not everybody knows what it actually means, but it is shared.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And now for our next question, where is the line between celebrating this holiday versus culture appropriation, as well as like economic monetization for personal gain?
What I'd like to say with that is just like I think it's a very fine line of what is considered a cultural appropriation. And it's just like what people will allow someone to get away with. And it's just like, you really shouldn't be if you're not of a Mexican descent or some type of, in my opinion, some type of Latin origin, I don't feel like you should be wearing a sombrero or anything, to be honest. And then also, it's the same thing with corporations. Like, they appropriate they culturally appropriate the incorrect stuff. Like, for instance, I remember one year for Cinco de Mayo, I think it was Corona, or one of the beer companies was doing a campaign for Cinco de Mayo, and they were using the Day of the Dead skulls and people. And I was just like, you're mixing your two holidays here. So if you're going to culturally appropriate the correct holiday. And it's like, I'm hoping also that, those companies do something like, like, while you're culturally appropriating and monetizing off of this culture's celebration, are you doing anything to fund any money into the Latin community, giving, like, having a scholarship that's specifically for Latinos, or funding a Latin nonprofit or something?
Sure. Oh man, where's the line? Well, we've all kind of mentioned already. There's personal little lines that really kind of, for lack of a better term. I mean, that kind of trigger your wince factor. Like, it's not quite what we want to see. I'm perfectly fine with monetization to a point, because there's so many hands in the pot, and I don't want to minimize the impact of a company that's run by brown folk that is capitalizing on this marketing push and feeding their family and feeding their employees and doing all that off of, while it's them, they're not even pushing per se their own interpretation. It's the commercialized interpretation. What'll bring in the most money, what'll bring in the most dollars, blah, blah, blah. So I just want to mention that, because it does go both ways to a degree. So you gotta call it straight, unfortunately. But it's really easy to appropriate. It's really easy to look like a jerk. It's really easy to make a fool of yourself for holidays like this. It's really, really easy. The marketing campaign Angel mentioned before, it's because it's just recognizable imagery. They just want you to be like, blah, blah, bang, Mexican, buy, I want it. It's the day. They don't care about, like, there's no care in it whatsoever. So I don't want to assume that there's more care than there really is. You know what I mean? Don't put fake mustaches on, man. Don't put the fake accent on just for the sake of whatever. I feel like those are kind of just basic rules. Like, I don't celebrate St. Patrick's Day with an Irish accent per se, but that's my personal line. It's a very hard line. And I wish it was easier to describe, to be honest, because there's appropriation everywhere. And once you call one, you got to call the other.
Thank you. And Maria, would you like to add to that, as well as, do you see this cultural appropriation with Dia de los Muertos?
Sorry for that. Actually, I think that there is a really, really almost not line in these two, but actually I think that all people need to I don't know how to say it, because it's really a big deal, you know, like Corona here in Mexico is a really important business, because it's beer business actually, and Mexicans like beer, so you know. But I think that they have like miscommunicate with the business, like from Mexico and from the United States, because actually here in Mexico, yeah, they do like really big parties, like from the Day of the Dead and Cinco de Mayo, the Independence Day, but they actually put that festivity in the festivity that it is. And in the USA, it's not like that, you know. And I think that has a lot to do with the talent management, because if you say to the other people what are they doing and for who, and they understand that, and they put on their t-shirt like, yeah, okay, we are going to do a Mexican event, but we are going to know why we are going to do it and when we're going to do it, and how Mexicans really feel with this day, or Latin Americans feel with this day, and like really knowing how to express the business company to the festivity is really hard. It's like a really large walk from them, but they have to do it, because if I was a Mexican in the United States and see this of the Day of the Dead on the Cinco de Mayo, I will be like, really? They are only doing it because of money. And they are doing it because of money. And I think that we are in a year that, in a generation that the stuff that we do is not only anymore because of money. We really want to know what is happening with the people. We really want to know what is going on with their life, what is going on with the culture, not only money. It's not only money. And I think that this Corona business actually don't see that right now, because they are only making that because of money. And they are selling the wrong idea to the Americans and the other people and the Americans believe that they actually, the Cinco de Mayo también tiene, sorry for that, my Spanish come out, sorry. The Cinco de Mayo has to do with Day of the Dead, and they are different culture. They are different celebrating. Well, there's a whole difference between them. So actually, I think that is a really, well, strange way how they use these celebrating days for make money.
Angel, I like what you said earlier. Like, who's profiting from like Cinco de Mayo? Like, I guess to put it in the United States, like specifically in Santa Barbara, like I specifically worked for a business that wasn't owned by a person of Mexican heritage, and they straight up capitalize on they're running on the concept of like papas and beer, this whole idea of like Mexican culture, like beer, tequila, and like this guy's making mad money. Like this corporation is capitalizing on Mexican culture. And to me, like when I knew about that, when I was aware of that, it was just cringe. I guess just to formulate what I'm trying to say is, I feel like there should be a call of action, since with the Black Lives Matter movement, and it really inspired me, where it's like, all right, how about like with the Cinco de Mayo, is like, where's your money going to? Are you actually going to actual Mexican owned business? Or are you going to talk about, are you going to actually buy it at Mexican vendor, or are you going to buy it from Hot Topic or etc., whatever? So, and also like corporations, their responsibility of giving back, holding them accountable. That's a really important thing too. So I think it's really important for all of us just to, I don't know, or I think that's something that could happen.
Thank you, Michael. And so that kind of leads into our next question. How can we move past holidays and celebrations to appreciate Mexican culture?
I think the best way that we can move past holidays and celebrations to appreciate the Mexican culture is actually, showing appreciation for the people, recognizing that we do make up a large population of the United States. That's one thing that could be done. The other thing is, like, the other way to show appreciation is, like supporting, like I said earlier, supporting like local small businesses, supporting us that way. And
it sure would be nice to be able to move past something like a designated holiday or a prefabricated celebration. That would be beautiful, just to be able to accept folk for being present and impacting not even the U.S. nation, but honestly, Mexican culture shapes a good portion of the world. Not only on the culinary standpoint. Like, to be honest, like a lot of people focus so much on the culinary, but there's so much physical art. There's so much business savvy. There's so much financial intelligence. I can't wait till that moment happens. I theorize that it would probably happen after probably a couple more generations, to be honest. I think it'll be a little there has to be a deeper understanding of who Mexicans are, and I don't think it's reached as many people as it needs to, myself included. I feel like there's more appreciation that needs to be had. There's more investment that needs to be had. I not the most ideal of comparisons, but in a way, I'll equate it to how the Italians were treated for such a long time. The Italians and the Irish, when they were here. Granted, Mexicans have been here, and their land is literally here, so that it's not the most equal comparisons. But they had their celebrations and their movements until they were internalized, so to speak. Where they could blend in. So after a couple more generations, I feel like it'll be natural. It'll be natural, and hopefully it'll be true appreciation and not just a hyper version of the Taco Tuesday culture that we kind of have right now.
Well, actually, here in Mexico, we don't have like Thursday of tacos. We call it Thursday of pozole. Here in Mexico, every Thursday is like Jueves de pozole. Sí. But okay, yeah, I think that this is a really difficult question because actually they own Mexicans, and I see it a lot with my family that go to other countries, actually in the United States. They think that they have to change their culture because I think that most people think that we Mexicans, we are not like greatest, you know? And when Benjamin was talking, I remember this phrase that Trump actually said. I don't know if you voted for Trump, but I don't care. I don't care. It's because Trump said that he don't want Mexicans in the United States because he thinks that the Mexicans that are in the United States are not like good enough, you know? And if you live here in Mexico, you will see that all the really, really, really good Mexicans, intelligence, in I don't know, in science, in employees, in everything, they go to the United States to live this American dream. So actually, you guys have the best brains of Mexico. You know, you have the best brains of Mexico, and this is really sad. And well, yeah, it's really sad for us because actually, me also, I don't like. I will not like to live here in Mexico all my life because, as you can guys see, here we don't have like really big opportunities like in the United States or Canada or in Europe. So actually, I think that we have to start first the Mexicans loving being Mexicans, and then when we accept that we really love our culture and love being Mexicans, we can make others see that Mexican culture is great. And we have a lot of things and a lot of food and a lot of cultural stuff that we have to offer to the world, because there is not only tacos and chile. There is not only that. We have a lot of things. We have music. We have mariachis. I don't know if you guys have heard mariachis. I really love the mariachis. And when I go to Canada and when I go to the Europe, the other people say like, yeah, taco chiles. And when I put on mariachis, they go like, oh my God, I love mariachis right now. And I love the Mexican culture because there is a lot of culture that even us, we don't see it. So I think that it's really difficult to make others like appreciate Mexican culture if we like Mexicans don't appreciate Mexican cultures, and all that stuff become from the education, because here in Mexico we grow up with the thinking that we are not going to be like the greatest. We have not opportunities. We are not going to speak like three language, English, French, Italian, whatever. We don't have like the money and all that kind of stuff. So they teach us like, yeah, you only have to work, you are not going out from Mexico, and you are like important in all the world don't care about you. And I think that if we change that, we are going to change everything of what the other people think about us. So yeah, it's really, 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 really difficult. That is what I think.
Thank you. And Michael?
Yeah, thank you, Maria. I guess to me, when it comes to the position of like, how can we decrease anti-Mexican sentiment in this country and increase Mexican cultural admiration? I guess one thing I would just start off with, like historically, United States ever since like 1845 of the Mexican-American War, and then Andrew Jackson, and just all the rhetoric, like a big part of like of American racism is anti-Mexican sentiment. Like the laws, like there's laws specifically targeted for folks of Mexican heritage. The anti-greaser laws, that was back in the 1860s. Then on top of that, it's just, I guess what I'm trying to say is just like now bringing into like the colorism and the colonialism. Like, yeah, there's There's güeros in Mexico. There's white people in Mexico. There's like literally Spaniards. There's Jews. There's French people who literally maintain like white supremacy, and they're still using that. There's still. I guess what I'm trying to say is like you have to understand the mestizo hierarchy and how that influences Mexican culture. Understand that I guess instead of going to that part, instead of going and seeing the big picture of like the history and all that, I guess it just comes down to like ethnic studies of like students learning at the elementary level, at the K through 12 level, and learn about different cultures. And in this case, specifically about the Mexican culture and how it contributed to the United States and built it and etc. And how even today, you know, dissolving rhetoric that breeds hate and so on. You know, we are also victims of hate crimes. You know, the hate crime that went down in Texas, how this white supremacist, this domestic terrorist, specifically targeted Mexicans, raza. His idea of Mexicans, he's like, oh, I'm gonna go to this Walmart, which is known to have a lot of Mexicans, but in this case is Latinos. But so I guess it has to go to that level, that systemic level, where we have to change the generations. And
yeah, so this is kind of very interesting what all you have shared, because something that Benjamin said, like bringing up the Irish and Italian, where they had to do with their own struggles within the American identity until they got assimilated into the American identity. And then Maria and Michael, they kind of bring up this whole aspect of like U.S. imperialism, where not just like those who U.S. is now extracting not just resources, but also people, whether people are migrating or immigrating. And so I'm just trying to get a better understanding, because this is also in the spirit of Cinco de Mayo, in the spirit of Mexican unity, in the spirit of anti-imperialism. Like, how do you see this being demonstrated moving forward?
I think when it comes down to bringing back to like colonialism, mestizaje, the indigenous people, the native people, you know, Canada, United States, Mexico, they all have similar narratives, and who is the upper dog, who is the underdog, who is the oppressed, who is the oppressor, and who is the oppressed. So in this case, you know, and then bringing it into colorism, it's like, of course, it's gonna be a lot easier for like white Latinos, including like myself, that's like ethnically ambiguous, you know, like to assimilate the United States as like the Irish. I know that I go into spaces, so it's a lot more easier. So I think it's just ingrained when it comes to the racism. So you have to understand that the indigenous people. So yeah.
Unfortunately, colorism does play a role, because once you can identify a group with a ready motion, like you can look and see a neighborhood of X or an area of Y. When you're able to do something like that, it makes assimilation obviously difficult. We've seen recently, unfortunately, how another community who's easily identifiable has been beyond taken advantage of, beyond disrespected, and made to be belittled. All that to say, the most powerful thing we have outside of our words, compound interest, is time. So we have to come together somehow. I mean, it feels like a broken record kind of thing, you know. We have to come together, and we have to push through, and we have to spread the word, and we have to educate the youth, and it becomes this wheel of what is enough. And I struggle to say what is enough. I struggle to think of what is enough, but I'm optimistic to think that the youth is smarter than I, and it might be a cop-out, to be honest, but I put my faith in the youth figuring this out. I do. I don't know why. I don't have like a logical reason or like a mapped out dissertation telling you why, but I have faith in the youth to figure this out, because where I've seen the perspectives of my own parents and grandparents to where they are now, from the time I was young to now I'm 31, there's been a dramatic change in how like my father processes certain things or certain situations, you know. So I feel like time and the youth is where this answer lies, and I don't have something definite. So I apologize for that, but that's where my faith lies.
I really appreciate you.
I think
go
with
ahead,
the
Mayo.
simulation comes erasure, and you definitely see that. You know, it's funny that we bring up these white communities like the Italians and the Irish. The only reason they were easily able to assimilate to the United States was simply because of their skin complexion. And at the time, they were being told, oh, you know, they were fraternizing with black people, which not a good thing when, you know, immigrants outnumber you along with black people. So it's just like, oh, if you want to be more like us, you have to separate yourself from them, which is basically what we're doing right now within our own communities. Because as I said earlier, we have our own, our Latin communities are still trapped in these Eurocentric mentalities. And it's something that we've keep struggling to get out of. And some of us are become enlightened enough to escape it, and some of us do not, unfortunately. And that's a constant battle within our own communities, because it affects us in all aspects. I mean, it's you have white passing Latinos who will quickly claim to be of white descent in certain circumstances because it works in their favor, versus when it's not, oh, it's like, I'm Mexican. And to circle back with assimilation equals erasure, you know, assimilating is not going to assimilation is only going to equate us to white. That's not going to bring Latinidad to the forefront. It's just like, okay, we're assimilated now. Now what? Now it's just like generations after us are going to try to reconnect to their roots and be like, try to figure out where they're from, because it's just like, I can't just be white. And I think it is something that we can, at least in this generation, start. But I know it's something that the next generation will definitely not put up with, because we're seeing it right now, currently, with, I hate to bring this up, I don't know how people feel about this, but with Lil Nas X and his recent song, and people getting in an uproar about that, because it's just like, literally, he's been told his whole life that because you're this way, you're going to go to hell. And when he actually does what people have said they're going to do, they get upset. And it's just like, it's funny. And like I said, I feel like the next generation after us is not going to put up with a lot of the shit that we have. Sorry for cursing.
Really good here. Very well said.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to take some words of Angel because of the skin color. Because actually, as you can see, guys, I'm not like really white, but my mom does. So every time that we travel, I have this I actually get really angry, because every time we travel, my mom and they say like, really, is she your daughter? And my mom like, yeah, is my daughter. Why? And they are like, oh, because of the skin color. And I'm like, really? Because of my skin color? Okay, and this is really made me really, really mad, because as Angel said, we have these ideas that because one people has this nationality will be like this. Like right now with this stuff of the Asian people, that they are like right now the top, like they are like really good boyfriends and K-pop and all that stuff. And we believe that if we know an Asian people, he or she will be a great boyfriend or girlfriend, and they have to be really skinny, and they have to eat a rice every day, and all that kind of stuff. But I think that actually in America, the Mexicans that go to America, most of them, not all, but most of them, they actually want to change the skin colors. And we don't go too far, because if you know Michael Jackson, well, he was not white. And because of this social pressure, he came like, okay, the United States want me to be white, I will be white. And it's really crazy, because I think that, as Angel said, the next generation will be more intelligent than us, and they will be more open-minded, and they will accept not only this Latino culture, because it's not only the Latino culture, it's also the skin color, the eyes color, if you're skinny, if you're fat, if you have the brown hair, if you have the curly hair, and also this stuff of if you like someone of the same sex, is really bad sin. And it's not like that. Love is love, and your culture is your culture, and done with it. It's okay to be yourself. And I think that this is like a really difficult idea from the people that are older. Like, for example, my father, before he died, he was the person that had this thought that the Mexicans have to stay in Mexico. And I was like, no, I'm not going to stay in Mexico. I want to do bigger things. I want to be my own boss. I want to be a Mexican that wherever I go, they will see like, oh, there is that woman that live in Mexico, but she is not longer in Mexico. She's really great right now. She's helping other people. She's making a lot of money to help other people. And my father also thought that the bisexual thing was not like really good, because here in Mexico we have the traditional of Catholicism, that you don't have to like the other people of the same sex. Well, actually, I don't like girls. I like boys, but I understand how the other people feel. And a few months ago, one of my friends actually died, and he was gay. And he suffered a lot of this discrimination, because he go to the United States, and in the school, they were like, oh, because you are gay, you like me, don't touch me. And I was like, oh my God, because I like boys, I don't like you. I don't like every boy that's walked through me. It's like a really difficult way of thinking. And I think that it will take like about 10 or 15 years to keep this open-minded culture in everything, not only in the skin or in Latinos or in the different kind of taste that we have. I think that in everything, it's going to be really, really difficult. And not only in the United States, in every country. Because if you go to Italy or to Korea or something like that, you will find people that think like that.
With that said, that is all the time that we have. Thank you everyone for joining us. For everyone at home, make sure you like the video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and listen to our podcast platforms from Anchor, Spotify, and Apple Music. Also, comment below. Describe your experience celebrating Cinco de Mayo. What resonates? Then follow us on all our social media outlets at Latin_entertainment. Join the Support Latina Business Facebook group, and check out our IG Lives every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Until then, see you next week as we discuss COVID-19 1 year later. All here on Conversamos.
Yeah, yo, is it that wrong? I'm making a song, I'm taking it back for the platform that I formed. Music's helping me transform. I run the